Yes, you. Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Today's episode is brought to you by Jen and Juice Coaching by yours truly. For the past 5 years, I've worked with over 100 people to help them feel, less stuck. Whether you're looking to change careers, start a side hustle, or just get a strategy for your life, head on over to jenglantz.com/coaching and you can find out about my 1-hour coaching specials that will help you feel like you can finally cross those things off your to-do list and start whatever kind of project, life change, or dream that you have. Hey, any youngers, it's me, your host, Jen Glantz. Welcome back to another episode of the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. Every time I say the words, the name of the show, it haunts me a little bit. It's really interesting when you're out and about and you hear people say the phrase, you're not getting any younger, and it just like hits you. It hits everybody because it's just such a true thing and a fact of life that no matter who you are, what your background is, what you're up to, you can't avoid that fact. So I'm glad it's the name of the podcast because every single time I record an episode and have to say that phrase, it definitely slaps me in the face and wakes me and shakes me a whole lot. This episode today is about something that I realized throughout my journey as a runner that I wanted to share with you. And it's a little bit of a different kind of message, especially for a podcast named You're Not Getting Any Younger, because this message is all about learning how to stop and give up. And those are not words you're going to hear me say very often. In fact, right now I am sitting drinking coffee out of a coffee mug that has my favorite quote in the world on it, and the quote is never, never, never give up. It's a Winston Churchill quote, and I love it because that's sort of been my motto and my theme throughout really everything in life. I've always been the kind of person that even when things are really hard or I'm not feeling great, I don't give up. I keep going. And sometimes that's risky. Sometimes that's at the expense of my health and my safety and my wellness, but it's sort of been a life motto. And for the most part, I don't regret it. The most part, I am proud of all the things I've accomplished because I've stuck so strong to that motto. But something happened to me recently where I had to go against that. And why this is a lesson I want to share with you is because sometimes when we're forced to go out of character, to do something different than we've always done in our life, it's a huge learning moment and it's a really hard lesson to swallow. If you've been listening to past episodes, you will know that ever since early February, I started my running journey. And in early February, I could not run more than 2 miles. If I hit the 2-mile mark, I was exhausted. I was sweating. I thought to myself, like, how do people actually do this? And by this, I mean run a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon. And it was around that time that my friend Molly asked me if we could sign up for a half marathon together that was happening in December. And this is before coronavirus. I want to remind you of that. So it sounded great and it also sounded so far away. I was thinking in my head, okay, it's only February. I'm at the 2-mile mark. By December, I'll figure it out. I'll learn how to run a half marathon. Plus, there won't be coronavirus. So maybe Molly and I could run together. Molly lives in Florida. I live in New York. But I was like, I will go down to Florida and we'll run together. I had all these grand plans. Obviously, none of them happened. However, the running did because I live in an area that has a track and has a lot of different paths. I live in Brooklyn, but there's a lot of different areas with paths where there wasn't a lot of people and it was pretty isolated, not in a scary way, but in a positive way. I took running pretty seriously. And in the month of March and April and May, when the world shut down, I found myself running more and more and more and loving it. And as a lot of you know, I even hired a running coach, Lucy, who is an ultra runner. I mean, she does like crazy marathons. She did a whole marathon on the track near our house just for fun with nobody watching, just because she ran 76 miles in a day once. Like, she's an ultra runner, and she was coaching me and helping me with not only running distance, but running faster and stronger and safer. And it was great. I loved it. But then something happened. And what happened was, a couple of weeks ago, every Saturday is my big run day. So what I do is, on my own, not even with an alarm clock, because I'm just so excited, I wake up at around 5:30 a.m., I put my running clothes on, and I leave the house, and I go on my long run. I never tell anybody how long it's going to be. I never share where I'm going to go. It's, for me, this personal journey that I just look forward to. And long runs in the past used to really freak me out. I couldn't even picture what it would be like to run 6 miles, 8 miles. Like, that wasn't even a thought. And then when I found myself flowing into this ritual of doing it quite often, I looked forward to it. So a couple of weeks ago, I'm on my long morning run, and I'm about 5 miles in, and I feel in my knee this pain, the sharp pain. And I felt this pain before, I won't lie to you. But usually the pain happened when the run was over. So I just sort of suffered through it for the next couple of days, and I didn't really nurture it or anything, because I was thinking to myself, well, the run's over, so who cares about my knee? Bad mistake. And I knew better than that, but I have to learn things the hard way. So here I am on this long run. I'm about mile 5, and I pull myself over, and I just like massage the knee a little bit, and I think, okay, like, this has sort of happened in the past, so I'm just going to keep going. So I run some more. I'm on mile 6. The pain is still there, and it's getting worse. And I think to myself, my secret goal for that run was 10 miles, which I had done many times before. So I knew I could do it. It wasn't that big of a deal. And at mile 6, I'm just in excruciating pain. And in my head, I keep hearing everyone's voices, from Lucy to my friend Steph, who's like a marathon runner, that when you feel pain, you have to stop. Like, running is something that a lot of people will say is very injury prone, and you have to listen to your body. And I am the kind of person who has ignored my body, who has told my body so many times in life, like, shut up, leave me alone, like, don't ruin this moment for me. And here I am just thinking, like, this pain is getting worse. Like, my intuition was telling me to stop, and I didn't. I kept going, and now I'm on mile 7, and I'm at the point where, like, I'd say every minute or so, I had to stop running and scream. And by the way, at this point, it's like 6:30 in the morning, 7 in the morning, and there's like a couple people out, a lot of construction workers out, and there was one point when I just pulled over, and they were doing really loud construction. They could barely hear me, and I just was screaming so loud because I was in pain. And because they had all this heavy machinery, they didn't even hear me, but they definitely looked at me thinking, like, this person might need help. Of course, I didn't stop. I keep going. And around this time at mile 7-ish, Adam calls me. And he just usually calls me throughout the run to check in, to see when I'll be done so he can meet me. And I just started hysterically crying. And I kept saying to him, like, I'm not okay, but I'm not stopping. And he was like, where are you? I'm going to come pick you up. Like, stop running. And I literally hung up the phone on him, because the last thing you want when you know you're already doing something wrong is someone to confirm you're doing it wrong and tell you to stop. And as the stubborn Aries I am, that is like the worst combination. It's like, you tell me to stop, I'm going to keep going. So I keep going. And at this point, the pain's going in and out. But when it's coming back, it is so strong. Like, it is the strongest pain in the world. The only thing I could really describe it as is it feels like the bone is like rubbing against something. And it's like the kind of pain that even when I say it, you're probably cringing. That's how it felt. It was so cringeworthy when the pain happened. So my goal is, like, I want to just make it to 8 miles. And I'm barely at the 7-mile mark. And I just wanted to make it to 8 miles because I felt like quitting at 8 was better than quitting at 7. Okay, that was like so illogical, so stupid, but okay, I just keep thinking that's my goal. So I would stop for 5 minutes, I would try to stretch out my leg, I would cry, and then I would turn my running app back on and keep going for maybe 25 seconds. And at this point, I'm just like blowing through time. At this point, Adam is blowing up my phone. At this point, now there's more people on the streets. It's like 7:15, 7:30 in the morning. There's like other people out there who are like really concerned about me. And I tried to run and walk that 7th mile. And when I hit the 8th mile, I turned off the app and I started crying. And I thought to myself, this is such an unusual feeling for me because I don't give up on anything. And I had to give up in this moment, because if not, I really did have to accept that my consequence would be something I wasn't ready to handle, which could have meant surgery, which could have meant not being able to walk, which could have meant never running again. And I've never really in my life cared about consequences as much as I did in that moment. And maybe it was because the excruciating pain was too hard to ignore, or maybe it's because my mind was filled with horror stories of other runners who have told me that they didn't stop and look at what happened to them. But I had to give up. And really, I can't even tell you the amount of times in my life I've given up on things. Again, even if it cost everything, I just kept going. But this was a time when I had to surrender. And that was really hard to swallow. I just stood still at this part of my run. It was probably maybe like a 30-minute walk home from where I was. I just stood still at this point and cried and tried to face the facts that this run was not going to be completed. And I sort of like to use this as a metaphor for other things in life. When we lose control, when we really can't continue on, when we have to pause, we have to stop, we have to let go. It's something that I know I'm personally not good at because I'm so scared of letting myself down. The thing with running, which is why I loved it, is it's such a personal game. There's nobody tracking your run. There's nobody telling you to hit 10 miles. There's nobody out there who cares if you just stop. And you care. You are the only person who cares. And if you're like me, I put so much pressure on myself. I set these incredible goals for myself. I don't give up on myself. It's such a tough game running when it's like a personal game like that. And that's why I loved it. But I think what I learned in that moment is that, Jen, sometimes you have goals and you do everything you can to meet them, but there are some things out of your control. And when those things happen, whether it's an injury, whether it's something happening in the world, whether things are just not going the way you want them to go, you have to stop. Because if you don't stop, what you are doing is just continuing down a direction that is a complete dead end. And maybe that dead end has consequences, or maybe it doesn't, but it's certainly not going to give you the ending that you have worked for, that you have desired. So my point of this story and this message is far more than just running. It's knowing when to stop. It's knowing when to pause. It's knowing when to let go and doing that. And maybe even grieving that, but just the art of doing it is a heroic action, is a healthy action, is great for yourself. And this is a story that I think lends to a lot of different areas in my life. I've never been good at letting things go, whether it's conflict or problems or people. I've never, ever been good at stopping, even though I needed a break. I remember when I was in college, I used to do so much in college. I think I had like 18-hour days in college between school and clubs and everything else, that I would hear my mom. The number one thing I remember my mom saying in college is that if I do not rest, I will get sick. And she was always right. I was sick all the time in college because I did not rest. I did not stop. So it's factoring those things in. It's looking at the big picture. And it's realizing that when things are not feeling right or going right, you have to stop and examine. So here I am, about 4 or 5, I don't even want to count the weeks since that moment, and I haven't been able to run since. I can run, the most I've run since is 3 miles, and the pain is back, and the pain is so sharp and scary now that I don't want to give into it again. So I'm trying to be smarter about my body and smarter about my goals right now, and trying really hard not to push the way I usually push myself. And this is a huge learning experiment for me, and maybe for a person like you as well. But either way, I challenge you to think about an area of your life that's painful, that's not going right, that doesn't feel good, that you are just pushing too far, that you need a break from, and identifying that. And the best way to identify that is maybe to scream it out loud, or to write it down, or to have that mirror conversation with yourself. But once you identify it, you can figure out how to rectify it, how to give yourself that out, that break, that pause. You deserve it. And I'll tell you, while it's been really hard to pause running, it's been really depressing to pause something that made me so happy. I don't have any other choice. And because of that, I have learned to fill that part of my life with other things. And there's beauty in every moment. And I just want you to see that and know that. So I hope you took away something from this episode. You know, I'm always here. I always have your back. Feel free to let me know what you thought. Let me know how you feel about what I said. You can come send me a DM on Instagram. I'm at Jen Glantz on Instagram. You can send me a personal email. I really love those, jenglantz@gmail.com. Or you can come hang out with me and the crew in the You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group. There's over 1,500 incredible people in that group waiting to say hello to you. And as always, if you're listening and liking, make sure you scroll down on your app right now. Give us some stars. Give us a review. All of that helps me keep on making this podcast possible. Until next time, all my love, Jen Glantz. Hey, you. Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.